This section of the course is all about CSS selectors, whether for CSS 2, 1, 3 or whatever. Now, a selector is the thing to which a rule is applied. So for example, let's take a look at this file here. Now this is selectors.htm, which is in the section 3 directory of the downloadable archive that accompanies this course. And let's look at the first entry here in the style section. Here you can see P and then a rule is applied to it. Now this is known as a type selector. For example, P is the type paragraph. So here what we're saying is that the contents of all paragraphs should be justified. In other words, the right hand edge shouldn't be ragged, it should be nice and neat and a straight line down the screen. Other type selectors would be, for example, we've been doing a lot with H1, the heading 1 selector, or H2 or H3, or maybe the image or whatever. Any HTML element can be selected for directly like this. In this case we're choosing the paragraph. So let's have a look at that in the Opera browser. Now there's a lot of stuff to look at here. Essentially this program puts together these rules and shows what they look like on the screen. So let's just concentrate on the first part, which is this here and this on the right. On the right is the rule from the style section here. It's the same rule, it's just shown next to it so you can compare and see what's going on. And here is what it's applied to. It's been applied to the text here. This is a paragraph. If there was a lot more text in there, then it would, the justify effect here would cause all of that paragraph to be cleanly justified down the right hand side. Okay, now there are a number of other types of selectors or ways of using selectors. For example, there's a thing called the descendant selector, which means take one selector and then have another one following it and then apply the rule only when that occurs. So in this example here, if there's a paragraph within which there's a bold tag, then set that inner tag section to the color red. In this particular rule, it could be whatever rule you like. This particular one says set it to red, and this is known as a descendant selector. So let's look at that in action. Here we have the HTML or an example of HTML that would make this happen. So there's a paragraph opener and a paragraph closer, and then here is the paragraph text within which there is some bold text created by using the B tag, B and /B. So let's have a look at the CSS again here. P, B. So when you have bold as a descendant of paragraph, color it red, and here we have it. It's been colored red. Okay, now not only can you have a descendant selector, you can descend down the levels, as many levels as you like. So for example here, UL, that's an underline, LI is a list, and B is bold. So what this says is, when you find a bold tag that is part of a list element, that's part of, did I say underline? I meant to say unordered list, I beg your pardon. So when you find a bold element that's inside a list element, that's inside an unordered list, then set it to the color blue. So let's have a look at that here. Here's an example that does this. Again, this is the rule here. This is just a comment which is ignored. So there's the rule. So here we have the UL and the closing /UL. So that defines an unordered list. And you can see it's unordered because it has these dots here rather than numbers or letters or whatever. So then within this pair of tags, we have two list elements, each of them identified by an opening LI and closing /LI tag. Now the first one just has the text, this is a list element inside it. But the second one has this is a list element with bold text in it, and that's inside B and /B tags. And that bold text, because of the two levels of descendant selectors here is displayed in blue. So it may look a little complicated, but it's really quite simple. We descend down the levels UL, LE, B, and then apply the rule to that. Now, there's another type of selector which is similar to a descendant, and that's called a child. And what this means is when a element is directly below another one, it's considered a child of it. So let's have a look here. Here's an example. We've got a paragraph that's P. Let's have a look here. There we are. We're looking at this particular rule here, the child, and we can see it again here on the right. So this rule states where you have a paragraph that immediately underneath it has some italic text, change that to the color purple. But if it has italic text somewhere within the paragraph but not directly underneath it, ignore that. So let's see how this works. Here's our opening paragraph and closing paragraph tags. Now directly underneath this P tag here, here's an I for italic, and as described by the rule here, that has been set to purple. So there you go. That's gone to purple inside those italics. So then the text carries on, and then a span. We encounter a span element, and there's the closing of the span. And within this span, there's some more italic text. But this isn't a direct child of the paragraph because it goes paragraph, span, italic. Now that's not supported by this particular rule, which says only italics that is directly inside a paragraph should be sent to purple. So there you can see the specificity of the rule in action. Right, let's move on now to what you've seen already, but this is a recap because I'm showing you all the different selectors. So here we'll look at the ID selector, which uses the hash or the pound symbol. So here's the CSS rule, and it says where the ID myDiv is applied, change it to italic. So here we are. Here's a div. It could be a span, could be anything. In this case it's a div, and it uses the ID myDiv, and therefore it must be italic, and as you can see it's set to italic.